To the outside world, Dr. Nathaniel Carter was the embodiment of success. A highly respected neurosurgeon, a loving husband, a devoted father, he was the man everyone admired. He had the perfect home in Lake Forest, a beautiful wife named Emily, 2 children, and a glittering career that made him a pillar of the Chicago community. He was the golden boy from the beginning. The prodigy who graduated top of his class at Harvard Medical School, the charming resident every nurse had a crush on, the young doctor who once performed a near-impossible surgery and saved a child's life, making the front page of the Tribune. Patients described him as kind, almost angelic. Staff said he never lost his temper. Parents requested him by name. He met Emily at a university lecture. She was studying literature, captivated by poetry and storytelling. He was the charismatic speaker at a panel on medical ethics. Their connection was instant. Within a year, they were married. Within 3, they had their first child, Alex. Then came Grace. Emily gave up her teaching career to support Nathaniel. She took care of the home, managed his social calendar, and raised their children. They were a team, at least that's what she believed. She hosted fundraisers, attended galas, and stood by his side at award ceremonies. She was proud of the man she had married, or at least who she thought he was. By day, Nathaniel saved lives. By night, he held court at charity events, sharing stories of triumph and sacrifice. He gave speeches on compassion, sat on panels about morality and medicine. He was a public figure, a man others trusted implicitly. He wore his white coat like a crown. And behind closed doors, Emily never questioned him. Why would she? He was the last person anyone would suspect of anything dark. He was disciplined, punctual, romantic even. He remembered anniversaries, left her notes, bought her favorite wine. He seemed like a dream husband. But dreams have a way of turning into nightmares when the cracks begin to show. It started with distance. Small things. Nathaniel became more distracted, took more overnight shifts, began working weekends. He stopped laughing at the dinner table. He'd retreat to his study at night and lock the door. Emily chalked it up to stress. After all, brain surgery wasn't for the faint of heart. Then came the absences. Conferences she hadn't heard about. Out-of-town trips with vague agendas. He was always reachable, but only just. Calls returned late. Texts curt. Her instincts began to whisper, but she silenced them. This was Nathaniel, her husband, her rock, until the package arrived. It was a cloudy Thursday when it showed up. A nondescript padded envelope addressed to her. No return label, nothing to indicate its origin. The handwriting was typed and precise. Inside was a flash drive. Curious, confused, Emily carried it to her home office. She hesitated for a moment. What if it was a virus? A scam? But something compelled her. Something cold and unfamiliar gnawed at the edges of her calm. She plugged it into her laptop. The folder contained dozens of files. Photos first. JPGs, each one dated. Nathaniel, her Nathaniel, with other women. In hotels, private homes, even in what looked like hospital call rooms. Some of the women were laughing. Some looked scared. All of them were undeniably intimate. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. Her chest tightened. She couldn't breathe. She clicked on a video file labeled Room 317. Grainy footage. A woman sobbing in the corner of a hotel room. Nathaniel's voice filled the speakers. Angry, loud. He grabbed her arm. She cried out. Then, cut to black. Emily pushed away from the desk. Her stomach turned. Her heart pounded. Her vision blurred. This wasn't just cheating. This was abuse. She closed the laptop, locked the office door, sat on the floor with her back against the wall. For hours, her mind ran through every memory, every unexplained bruise on his hand, every time he dismissed her questions, every moment she'd ignored her gut. 20 years. 20 years of love, loyalty, and blind trust, reduced to a collection of digital horrors. When he came home that night, Nathaniel kissed her cheek, smiled, told her he'd had a long day. She smiled back. Her voice didn't waver. She set the table for dinner, because now she had a choice. Confront him, or uncover the truth. Emily chose the latter. Emily hired a private investigator named Olivia Wren, a former cop with a no-nonsense attitude and a reputation for uncovering the truth, no matter how deep it was buried. Emily gave her everything she had: the flash drive, a list of Nathaniel's recent trips, financial statements. Olivia got to work. Within days, the facade of Nathaniel's life began to crumble. He had a second apartment downtown, a luxury penthouse under the name Lucas Miles, rented through a shell corporation, paid 6 months in advance. When Olivia pulled security footage from the building, she found him coming and going at odd hours, never with the same woman twice, except for one. Isabelle Hart. She was 27, a waitress at a jazz bar in Lincoln Park, aspiring painter. Her Instagram was filled with soft watercolors and selfies with cryptic captions. Olivia met with Isabelle's former roommate, who described her as gentle but naive, the kind of girl who fell too hard, too fast. Isabelle had met Nathaniel at the bar. He introduced himself as a hospital administrator, said he admired her art, bought several paintings, flattered her, wooed her, promised her he was getting a divorce, said his wife was controlling, cold. Emily read the transcript of that conversation later and felt like she was suffocating. Nathaniel paid Isabelle's rent, took her on weekend trips. She disappeared 3 weeks before Emily received the flash drive. Emily couldn't sleep. She stayed up late reading old text messages from Nathaniel, trying to find the lies she had once missed. Every message now seemed like a code, a riddle she was too tired to solve. Finally, she gathered all the evidence she had. The photos, the video, the financial records. She walked into the precinct and asked to speak to someone. That's when she met Detective Marcus Lynn. Lynn was a seasoned investigator, calm, direct. He watched the video in silence, his jaw tightening slightly. He asked few questions, just listened. When it was done, he looked Emily in the eye. "I'm opening a case," he said, "and you did the right thing." A warrant was secured for the penthouse. Lynn and his team moved in. What they found inside stunned even the most jaded officers. Chains, hidden cameras, soundproof rooms, shelves lined with unlabeled DVDs and encrypted hard drives. A chilling sense of meticulous planning. And then the wall. One corner of the bedroom had been recently patched. The drywall texture didn't match. When they broke through, a shallow grave was revealed behind it. Isabelle's body was wrapped in a painter's drop cloth. Her hands were bruised. Defensive wounds lined her arms. Her neck was broken. Nearby, in the crawl space, was one of her sketchbooks, water-stained but intact. The last page showed a rough portrait of Nathaniel, eyes dark, shadowed, monstrous. Emily wept when she saw it. Nathaniel was arrested during surgery. The hospital lobby fell silent as officers entered the OR. He didn't resist, simply handed off the scalpel, removed his gloves, and said, "I assume this is about her." The media exploded. Respected neurosurgeon arrested in shocking murder case. Headlines, news cycles, talk shows. Patients of Nathaniel's shared their disbelief. Some defended him. Others stayed quiet. Emily avoided it all. She stayed home, blinds drawn, watching her children try to make sense of their father's absence. Grace cried every night. Alex withdrew into silence. She sat in Isabelle's parents' living room 2 weeks later, hands trembling. They were kind, broken people. Her mother clutched Emily's hand and said, "Thank you for not turning away." Emily didn't feel brave. She felt hollow. She had unmasked him, but what she saw beneath still haunted her. The investigation should have ended with Nathaniel's arrest. The media declared it a closed case. The villain caught, the system working, but something didn't sit right with Detective Marcus Lynn, who sent the flash drive. Why now? And most importantly, how many others had suffered without a voice? Lynn had seen enough cases to know when a criminal had a pattern, and Nathaniel Carter didn't strike him as someone who killed on impulse. This was control. This was ritual, and that meant there could be more. He pulled the evidence files and reopened every log from the penthouse search. The tapes, the journals, hard drives, unlabeled DVDs. He set up a dedicated task force with 2 detectives and a forensic analyst, Daria Kwan, who was particularly skilled at uncovering digital footprints. They started reviewing the tapes. Dozens of women appeared on the footage. Some were smiling. Some looked bored. But a few, too many, appeared drugged, dazed, or distressed. Daria cross-referenced these faces with missing persons databases. That's when they found her. Abigail Rowe, 29 years old, a barista and freelance graphic designer, reported missing 2 years earlier by her younger sister. The case had gone cold within weeks. No signs of foul play, no known enemies, no suspicious activity. She'd simply vanished. Until now. Abigail appeared in 3 of Nathaniel's recordings. In the first, She smiled nervously, answering questions. In the second, her posture was stiffer, her responses shorter. In the third, her arms showed bruising, and she flinched at Nathaniel's touch. Emily was trying to move on when she received another anonymous envelope. This time, it came to her new house. No postmark, no return address. Inside, a single photo. Isabelle, sitting on the couch in the penthouse, smiling slightly. Typed on the back, "She wasn't the only one." Emily called Lynn immediately. He compared the envelope and note to the original flash drive package. Similarity in paper stock. Same font. Lynn now believed the person sending these wanted the truth exposed, but they wanted it done in pieces. A game. A guilt-ridden confession? The team expanded their review of Nathaniel's known movements. Olivia Wren, the private investigator who had helped Emily, was brought in to assist. She uncovered travel records and receipts under Nathaniel's alias, Lucas Miles. Milwaukee, Indianapolis, Louisville. Each trip coincided with a reported missing person case. All young women, all fitting a similar profile. One evening, Daria found a pattern in the bank records. Large payments made from a shell company to an unnamed recipient. Monthly, always the same amount. Lynn tracked it to a former hospital administrator, Samuel Bryce. Bryce had resigned abruptly after Nathaniel's arrest and moved out of state. Lynn tracked him down in St. Paul, Minnesota, living under a new name and working at a logistics firm. When confronted, Bryce broke down. "I didn't kill anyone," he said. "But I knew. I knew he wasn't right. I just looked the other way." He admitted to setting up the shell companies, to managing hush money, and most importantly, to sending the flash drive and the note. "I couldn't live with it," he confessed. "She wasn't supposed to die. I thought if I came forward anonymously, someone would finally see the truth." His testimony brought more cases into question. Lynn connected at least 2 more missing persons to Nathaniel's movements. One of the women had last been seen entering a private event hosted by a medical association Nathaniel had co-chaired. But without bodies, charges couldn't be filed. Still, the internal report Lynn compiled listed 10 possible victims beyond Isabelle. A chilling number. Emily was informed of every update. Each time, her heart broke anew. She began keeping a journal of the names, lighting a candle for each woman, trying to give them the remembrance they had been denied. Abigail, Lena, Mallory, Nina, Claire, Tara, Kimberly, Jasmine, Rachel, Isabelle. Isabelle wasn't the only victim. She was just the one they found. The courtroom was packed. Media, families, the curious, all staring at a man once seen as a savior, now exposed as something else entirely. The marble floors echoed with each step. The air felt tight, charged with tension. Emily sat in the front row, hands clasped tightly in her lap. She avoided looking at Nathaniel. The man at the defense table wore a perfectly tailored suit, his expression unreadable. He looked like he always had, composed, collected, confident. It made her stomach turn. The prosecution opened with a striking statement. Assistant State's Attorney Dana Keller stood before the jury, her voice firm, unwavering. "This case is not just about murder," she said. "It's about deception, manipulation, and a man who lived 2 lives. One of public praise, and one of private horror." The prosecution laid it out meticulously. Nathaniel Carter, respected surgeon, lived a secret life of dominance, abuse, and ultimately, murder. The evidence was overwhelming. Journals detailing violent fantasies, footage from hidden cameras, witness testimonies, Isabelle's autopsy results. The court listened to the forensic pathologist describe Isabelle's injuries: fractured ribs, ligature marks, and a snapped cervical spine. A hush fell over the room. Then came the tapes. One was played in court. Blurry, black and white, with no audio. Isabelle tied to a chair. Nathaniel walking in, his movements deliberate. A gasp echoed from the gallery. Emily took the stand. The courtroom went still. Her voice was quiet but unwavering. She recounted the discovery of the flash drive, the sleepless nights, the unraveling of her reality. "He was 2 people," she said. "One I loved, and one I never truly saw." The defense tried to discredit her. They asked if she was angry, if she had planted evidence, if she was trying to hurt Nathaniel because of his infidelity. "He didn't just cheat on me," she said, glaring at the defense attorney. "He destroyed lives, including mine." Next came Samuel Bryce. He confessed to hiding what he knew and helping fund the cover-up. His voice trembled. "I should have come forward sooner," he said, "but I was scared." Under cross-examination, the defense tried to undermine his credibility. "You accepted hush money," they reminded the jury. "You stayed silent for years." "Yes," he said, "and every night, it haunted me. That's why I sent the evidence. I wanted to stop him." The defense tried painting Nathaniel as misunderstood, a man trapped in a toxic relationship. They brought in a psychologist who testified that Nathaniel had a dissociative personality, capable of disconnecting from reality. But the prosecution tore that theory apart with journal entries. One read, "Power is not given. It is taken. Control is earned through fear." The jury's expressions hardened. Closing arguments were tense. "He didn't snap," Keller said. "He planned. He manipulated. And he killed." The defense tried one final appeal. Don't let emotion cloud the facts. One tragedy doesn't erase decades of service. But the jury didn't flinch. Deliberations lasted just over 4 hours. "Guilty, on all counts." Emily wept silently. The judge looked at Nathaniel. "Do you have anything to say before sentencing?" Nathaniel stood. His voice was cold. "There are things you'll never prove," he said. No apology, no remorse. Emily tried to rebuild. A new home, new routines, a life without lies. She kept Isabelle's necklace in a small wooden box, a reminder of the girl whose death had exposed the truth, a promise that she would never forget. The house in Evanston was quiet, but peaceful. Her children were slowly adjusting. Grace began painting, much like Isabelle had. Alex joined a local robotics club and started opening up. For the first time in years, Emily allowed herself to imagine a future untouched by fear. But the past still lingered. Detective Lynn, nearing the end of his career, requested one last visit with Nathaniel. In the cold, sterile visitation room, he sat across from the man who had orchestrated so much pain. Nathaniel looked unchanged, collected, calm, unreadable. "Any regrets?" Lynn asked. Nathaniel tilted his head slightly. "Regret is a luxury. What about the other women?" Nathaniel smiled faintly. "You don't have enough evidence. And some ghosts should stay buried." Lynn left the facility shaken, not because he hadn't expected that response, but because it was so absolute, so disturbingly void of conscience. 3 months later, the call came. Nathaniel Carter was dead. A prison fight. A handmade weapon fashioned from a sharpened toothbrush. Witnesses said the attacker had shouted, "For my sister," before lunging. The identity of the victim's sibling was never officially released. But Lynn and Emily both knew. Somewhere, another life Nathaniel had destroyed had finally struck back. When the prison warden contacted Emily, she listened in silence. "Would you like to claim the body?" "No," she said. "Let the system finish what it started." The news reignited the media firestorm. Infamous surgeon killed in prison. Some called it justice. Others, karma. Talk shows debated the ethics. Former patients expressed disbelief. For Emily, it was just noise. She declined all interview requests. But quietly, she began speaking elsewhere. At first, small gatherings, support groups, local panels. Then she was invited to keynote a survivor advocacy conference. She hesitated, unsure if her voice could carry that weight. But when she walked on stage and saw the sea of faces, she understood why she had to speak. She told her story, not just about Nathaniel, but about trust, about intuition, about silence, and how it nearly cost her everything. "Monsters don't always look like monsters," she said. "Sometimes they look like husbands, fathers, doctors, and the scariest part is they can convince you it's all your fault." The audience wept. They stood and clapped, not for her pain, but for her courage. Emily continued her work, raising awareness about emotional abuse, psychological manipulation, and predatory behavior hidden in plain sight. She established a scholarship in Isabelle's name for young artists. She worked with families of missing women to advocate for better cold case funding. Lynn retired later that year. His final report on the Carter case concluded with a rare personal note. Sometimes, justice is not a verdict. It's what comes after, in the courage of those left behind. Nathaniel Carter's name became a dark chapter in Chicago's history, a cautionary tale, a symbol of unchecked charm and hidden rot. He reminded the world that evil doesn't always come in shadows. Sometimes it smiles, it heals, it shakes your hand. Emily placed a framed photo of Isabelle beside the wooden box, lit a candle, and whispered, "You won't be forgotten." Then she turned off the light. And finally, she let go. Because sometimes, the most dangerous monsters were the most convincing masks. This case proves that secrets never stay buried, and that sometimes, the people we trust most are hiding the darkest truths. Do you think justice was truly served? Or did Nathaniel Carter take too many secrets to his grave? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more gripping true crime stories like this one. Thanks for watching.